That Hosen Roughhouser. It's pretty scary. You want to make sure you have enough space on your board whenever you play like Tsunami as well. If you have the Cosmic Keyboard, you want to make sure you have enough room on board for your extra 5/5. You want to always make sure you do the math for like your lethal damage. Because like, yeah, I have 18 on board here. So that means I need 12 more. But if I just play Tsunami, that would be 9 more damage. And then I think the yeah, the Mixologist potion is the last 3 damage. Yeah. So this is like pretty like mid-rangey, I would say. You're just having a really big pop-off on like turn 5. And it's a really great 10 mana minion there. They just kind of concede. It's too much for them. Hey guys, how's it going? It's Maestro, and we're here with a quick deck overview of the Big Spell Mage from the new Perils in Paradise expansion. So this deck uses the new Paradise Mage cards, such as King Tide, to get a lot of value off of big spells, such as the new Tsunami, as well as Sunset Volley. So there's a lot of way to cheat out these big spells, not only with King Tide, but also with the Surfalopod, which is the next spell you draw as cast when drawn. So there's a couple of major mechanics that this deck uses in order to basically accomplish its goal of casting these big spells for cheap. So the first one is obviously playing King Tide on turn 4, and then making sure you have like either a Sunset Volley or Tsunami in hand, and then just playing one of those spells on turn 5. Another good combo is to play Surfalopod on turn 5, and then on turn 6 either play Under the Sea, so that you guarantee that you draw another different big spell, or Watercolor Artist, which you can play, which will draw the Tsunami, since that's the only frost spell. The only spells that I have in this deck are these really big high cost spells: Tsunami, Sunset Volley, Under the Sea, and then Star Power for control. And that's because we want to make sure we're only drawing these big high value spells. And then throughout the game, we have a lot of different options for value and control. This new Tide Pool Pupil is actually really good, because not only can you get back one of like the big spells that you cast, but could also get back some really high value small spells, such as the Cheese from the Gorgonzormu, the 1-cost potion from Mixologist, and even the pendant from Grifta Trusted Vendor. So those are just some examples of really high value, low cost spells that are generated in this deck, but that you can get multiple copies of if you cast them with Tidepole Pupil. We have Cosmic Keyboard, which is pretty easy to understand. Like we have a lot of big spells, so there's gonna summon a lot of really high statted elementals off of those. Drink Server for early game control. Bumbling Bellhop, because we do have lots of spells that cost 5 or more, so it's going to get value for that. Gorgonzormu is good, again, for just overall value and tempo. The Cheese synergizes well with Tidepole Pupil. Messmaker is sort of it's a option that you can trade out with if you, for example, want to try Tide Pools. You know, if you want to replace that, you know, that's something you may consider. I will say I did try Tide Pools instead of Messmaker, and I was running into some problems with hand size, and also the fact that it doesn't do well against like aggro decks, because this doesn't actually get you any value immediately. You have to discover and then cast a spell. So I thought Messmaker was just another good option for dealing with like those really aggressive decks. Mixologist, because the 1-cost potion is always good. In the ETC, of course, we have Hearth, Yogg, Infinitize and Maxitude. And then Watercolor Artist is exclusively gonna draw Tsunami. Even if you just play Watercolor Artist on turn 4, you're gonna be able to play Tsunami by turn 7 in that case, because this is gonna get reduced down to 7 in 3 turns, and then you're gonna have 7 mana in 3 turns. So you get 7 mana Tsunami. And Sleet Skater is just, again, survivability, armor gaining, stuff like that. I will say this deck is doing pretty well. I think its biggest weakness is just going into really late games against like Druid, because like Highlander Druid, because like Druid really ramps up like a lot of value, or if you just like don't have the right options in the early game, you get aggroed out very easily. But other than that, like I say it's pretty well rounded in terms of like whether you get a matchup against aggro or control slash value. Make sure you have like a good hand, like you're doing a good mulligan and stuff like that. But overall, pretty impressed with this deck. I do have a few games to show you guys, so hope you enjoy. Alright, it's our first game against the very aggressive Pain Warlock. I actually sort of had a list for this, but I think if you're looking for a Pain Warlock list, like, not gonna lie, the opponent has a pretty good list from just what I've seen. I know this is like not their deck video, but if you're just like curious, like what other decks are people playing out here, this is a pretty solid Pain Warlock deck. You're gonna see why, because you'll just be able to pump out a lot of like aggression in the early game, like a 5/5 on turn 1. Obviously, not a lot of decks can do that. But it's also another chance to show off how my deck deals with really aggressive decks like this Pain Warlock. And luckily we do have a really good hand that has a lot of the tools for dealing with like these aggro decks. Like the drink server is honestly was so great to see that, because the drinks are just really utility ways to just control the board. And usually when you get Gorgon Zormu, you want to play that on curve so that the cheese can start ramping up as quickly as possible. We have a 7/7, 2 mana 7/7 there, right? So, like I said, everything's kind of coming together as far as my hand goes. Like, we got the Bumbling Bellhop and the Nightshade Tea to kind of answer their board. And so it's really nice to have these options. So something to note right here is that they're literally already at 6 health, right? So if there's any way you can like find 3 damage somehow, but I also just have like the star power here to kind of answer their board. Another play could have been like the Tide Pools looking for something, but obviously that's like a little bit riskier. And they go back to 15 with the Infernal. A little bit of an order there for the opponent. They could have done that better, but they're doing pretty well. And then I get really lucky off of this delicious cheese. Like, I see that I get the Paladin Tourist Rayla. And so that kind of changes my play last minute. Because I want to actually get as much value off of Rayla as I can. So, you get the Stealth Gem that restores health, which is also very good. So at this point, like we kind of stabilized a little bit the early game aggression from the Pain Warlock. So we're gonna see how we convert this game. That minion is stealthed there. And again, they're at 6 life here. So a couple of options here actually. I think I go for the Tide pools, hoping I can find 4 damage somehow. Another option could have been like going for Grifta, because I know Grifta has a deal 6 damage as one of his amulets. I go for the King Tide, which is also fine. Just preparing for next turn. But yeah, the Sunset Volley is going to be enough here with the gem. Yep. So you might find yourself in some pretty tough spots versus aggro, so just making sure you have like the right options in your hand to deal with that. And this is another game against another aggro deck, the Aggro Pirate Shaman deck. So you want to be with these mulligans, like if you see like Shaman or if you see like an aggro class, like that's a sign you want to look for low cost cards so that you can like keep up in the early game. But luckily the opponent here isn't too aggressive. So we have King Tide in our hand, which is good right now, but I don't have any of the big spells that I would normally want. So the Mixologist, I'm trying to look for like the deal 2 damage to all minions, but I don't think I got it then. So something I could have done here is, well actually, because I just top decked the Tsunami, I just play King Tide, because now I have a turn 5 play. They're gonna have a little bit of a field day here. But honestly, things could be worse. That's not the worst thing. Like aggro Pirate Shaman will pop off like for one turn like this, but then once you clear their board, it's like, alright, it's pretty much done. That Hosen Roughhouser is pretty scary. You want to make sure you have enough space on your board whenever you play like Tsunami as well. If you have the Cosmic Keyboard, you want to make sure you have enough room on board for your extra 5/5. It's good that it froze his face, because then the motorcycle dude he's not going to be able to attack with his hero. Okay, so we kind of took the initiative for board here, so. But yeah, so a good kind of play with Surfalapod is, like, I have the watercolor artist in my hand. So that basically guarantees that I will draw Tsunami next turn somehow. You do want to be careful with your board size. Like, my board is a little bit too wide here, so I want to kind of cut that down, make sure I have enough space for when I want to play my Tsunami. So making some good trades here. Yeah, just be careful about that board size. Honestly, the best play here is just, yeah, the watercolor artist. You don't get like the best value because you don't get all 4 of the elemental. Oh wait, you just have lethal. I forgot. That's another thing. Make sure you count and make sure you're counting your damage so that you know you have lethal. Alright, so we just saw 2 aggro decks. So we also have a few games against control decks like Warrior. And really you want to make sure like this deck usually does pretty well, but you want to make sure you get going, I would say, like by like turn 4 or 5, like, because if you get into like the really late game, like turn 9 and 10, and you're just playing like Sunset Volley and Tsunami for their face value cost, then Warrior is probably already like in a pretty good spot to like hold you off. Not to rush you, but you just want to kind of make sure that you get going in time. The good thing about like these Warrior control decks is you don't have to worry about early game aggression. But just make sure that like you can put up a pretty good like mid-range, I would say. And honestly, like, I don't have the most impressive hand though, if I'm being honest. Like, I do have the Cosmic Keyboard on, which is really good. But like, I actually think like this is a bit of a slower game for me, because I don't have King Tide or Cephalopods, which are the 2 cards you really want to see. But since I do have the Cosmic Keyboard, yeah, okay, nice. That's pretty good. So we have both Tsunamis. But if you like kind of do the math on the cost reduction for the Tsunami, it's gonna go down to 7 mana by turn 7. So you want to plan that out, knowing you're gonna play Tsunami on turn 7. So for example, you want to make sure that you still at least have like 1 charge on the Cosmic Keyboard. And there's another really cool like interaction. So I have the Amulet of Strides, and I had Tide Pool Pupil in my hand. So that basically lets me get another Amulet of Strides. Like that's what I was talking about in the deck overview. Is if you have Tide Pool Pupil in your hand while you play like a high value low cost card, then you can just get that card back, and it's a lot of really good value. And I can even play Sunset Volley on turn 7, because that's now 7 mana. And I think that's actually probably the better play here. It's just to go like Cosmic Keyboard into, because that's 0 mana, into Sunset Volley. And next turn we have our Tsunami for 8 mana. They play their Bran. So this is actually, yeah, a little bit of a slower game in terms of like how my deck is doing, but we're really ramping up on these like turn 7, turn 8, right? I have just enough space on board for all of the water elementals and the extra 8/8 off of the keyboard. Gonna restore a lot of health here. But luckily I do have star power. And a 3-mana tsunami. Which is pretty incredible. And you actually like, you want to always make sure you do the math for like your lethal damage. Because like, yeah, I have 18 on board here. So that means I need 12 more. But if I just play Tsunami, that would be 9 more damage. And then I think the yeah, the Mixologist Potion is the last 3 damage. Yeah. So make sure you just do the math for lethal, I guess. But honestly, like, whenever I just kind of just go for what the best play is, and sometimes that ends up being lethal anyways. Again, Tide Pools is an optional pick if you want to try putting that in your deck, seeing how it goes. I just never really felt like it was that great. We're going up against a relatively aggressive deck here. Relatively aggressive. King Tide is always good to see, but I don't have a big spell yet. Okay, so that basically solidifies that I'm going to play King Tide on turn 4 and then Sunset Volley on turn 5. You see, this is what I mean, like, I feel like the spells that you discover off of Tide Pools are not that great. Like, I don't think I really know if I've played like a single spell that I've discovered off of Tide Pool. Ooh. It's also good that I have the Cosmic Keyboard. Alright. So this is like pretty like mid-rangey, I would say. You're just having a really big pop-off on like turn 5. And it's a really great 10-mana minion there. They just kind of concede. It's too much for them. Alright, so we have another control game against Warrior. But yeah, this deck, like, I would say the power spike for this deck is like early game, like turns 1 through 4-ish. You're just trying to like survive and like kind of like maybe get your Cosmic Keyboard and your Drink Server on the board. By basically turn kind of 4, 5, 6 plus, you want to really be playing like your King Tides or your Cephalopods. And things like that. Obviously, it's not always going to be the case. They destroyed my weapon though, sad face. do have a really good hand though with King Tide into Sunset Volley. Oh. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't just go King Tide into Sunset Volley. I guess I was saving it for some reason. Because I can go Surfalapod into Under the Sea as well. And I think that's the play that I do here. Which is not bad. The warrior is doing pretty well right now. But you see, like, it's cards, it's like kind of boards like this, which is why I'm not a huge fan of tide pools, because now I'm already having problems with my hand size. Yeah. So it probably wasn't the best play to have Grifta on turn 4. Like, I probably should have just played King Tide. But it's okay.
My hand is full to the brim.
So I know I have the coin, so I'm planning on playing coin Sunset Volley next turn. So that's why I really want to make sure I get the weapon. I don't have the instrument tech in the final list. You're welcome to substitute like maybe Sleet Skater if you want instrument tech instead. But it's always like a bit of an awkward draw if you like if you already have like one or both of your weapons in your hand and then you draw instrument tech, it just feels like a dead draw sometimes. So I'm feeling pretty good about our board here. The Molten Rune is useful. Get pretty lucky with the Banjo Soar.
This place is scary.
I think I was trying really hard to like find lethal here. Because it's always like, when is Warrior gonna drop their Zilliaxes, right? Their Zilliaxes and their hydration stations and whatnot. Okay, so we've kind of managed to swing the game here, both in terms of board and health total. The opponent really needs to make a play to gain armor or clear my board. Or both. But I have the Molten Rune and the Sea Breeze Chalice.
You honor your ancestors.
Okay, and we do manage to get the lethal. Game 6 against Wish Rogue. I feel like Wish Rogue is doing pretty well in the meta right now because there's a lot of extra cards that can generate coins for them, such as like the Metal Detector card as well as Tide Pool Pupil. That can get you another coin. But we're here to talk about my deck, right? So I have Bumbling Bellhop, which is always good to see, and I do luckily draw a 6-cost spell, so I'm going to be able to play Bumbling Bellhop on turn 3, which is great tempo. You can play Mixologist on turn 4. Or just Gorgonzormu here. Yeah, you want to get the cheese as soon as possible. Yeah, it's good to see Tide Pool Pupil because that means the delicious cheese is going to go into that minion's Discover. Get a nice clear with that Velorock there. We don't want to see that Velorock, it needs to go. There's our Messmaker. So I don't have a lot of great plays here, if I'm being honest. I'm not kind of as along as I would like to be, right? Because we didn't draw our King Tide, we didn't draw our Cephalopod. So it's kind of like, what do we do here? Okay, at least we... Oh wow. That's really good. We summoned the Assembly Bot off of the Tsunami. And we got back our Under the Sea from the Tide Pool Pupil, which is good. So this is a little bit of a slower game for us, but you can kind of see like the different ways that this deck plays out. So probably it's a little bit of a misplay. I should have attacked with the pupil first. So kind of the game plan now is to just be as aggressive as possible, and hopefully we can aggro out the opponent before they get like a lot of really good minions off of their Wishing Well, which they're just cashing in all of their coins right now. And luckily their legendary minions aren't too good. They're not too amazing. So I'm pretty close to lethal here. I kind of just play Grifta and hoping I can find something. And I actually realized that the Amulet of Passions that lets you control an enemy minion, you can use that on their own minion, and the minion can attack the same turn. Like, it doesn't get summoning sickness. So that kind of won me the game there. But that's good to know, like, that the minion doesn't get summoning sickness after you take control of it. You can attack with it.
I must protect the wild.
Now this is Dragon Druid. If I'm being honest, I don't have a good record against Druid because, like, in the early game, they're gonna play like there's Whelp, their 1 mana 3/2, and then they're like the 3 mana growth dragon crystal thingy. So they're really good at putting up a lot of tempo in the early game, and then in the late game they're gonna play like their Raystrazas and their Mista Vistas and things like that. So Druid is challenging in that way because they have a lot of just output in the early game and in the late game. So basically you want to go for that sweet spot in the middle game, is where you want to try and win, basically. And I do have Cephalopods, which is good. Oh, and King Titan Tsunami, that's like the optimal hand. This was kind of like an optimal game, if I'm being honest. I got pretty lucky with good draws. So it obviously, like, it helps to have good draws and a good hand. It's not necessary though. There, King Titan to Tsunami. If you think about it, like, Tsunami is a little bit more than a 16 value card because the water elementals are 4 mana normally. So you're getting like 16 plus value, 16 plus mana worth of value for 5 mana. You don't want to leave any of those spell damage minions up. So I played the Cephalopod just now, and then I'm gonna play Under the Sea. So that's kind of how that sequence works. Well, they drop down their Fae, so we need to clear their Fae for sure. We'll play Under the Sea next turn. We got time for that. The opponent's already at a pretty low life total though. So depending on what they do, like, we might just win. Yeah. Nice. There you go.